anxiety attack. It's me. I'm in the middle of an anxiety attack. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about my scar tissue series here. Now, why would I want to paint scar tissue? Well, why not? Apple, my dog is crying at me, fussing because her daddy's not here. Why would you want to paint scar tissue? And I say, why not? I think it is one of the more beautiful things that our human bodies do. You know what I mean? We never heal in quite the same way that we were before. And I think that's just the good Lord telling us that we come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And all those shapes and sizes are the right shape and size. That's kind of the vibe, is that even if we get pulled apart and put back together again, it's still right. It's still flesh. It's still perfect. It's still beautiful. Even when it's not the same way that it was before. You smelling what I'm stepping in? You picking up what I'm putting down? I think. And that's why I as I've been working on this scar tissue series, it's been what I've been realizing, is kind of the lesson that I've learned, that I've taught myself through working through this. All of these shapes, all of these webby textures, this lumpiness, this stretched area, like whether this was like, this is not a way that a human being's hand would look. At least I don't think so. I was trying to put it to the very extremes, right? But still, like, the human body could heal from just the most insane wounds. And that's kind of what I was exploring there. And the shapes that we get put back together in when we are healing from that wound, And kind of like the way that pain feels, like if I were to get a cut in the middle of my hand like this, in my palm, it would feel almost like this. Like Studio Ghibli is a really good example. Let's add some more red. I want to get that bruised palette. Like I was talking earlier about how I like a bruised palette, and I've got my phthalo blue. So I get this really bruisey purple. So now we're gonna go in with this purple, and I'm gonna accentuate these creases here. My brush is too wet. Grab some more blue, a little more of this red. Let's go in and accentuate the shadows over here and the creases. But we press on. I chose this life. I did. I chose the life of an artist. Oh, I'm starting to sweat. Yeah. So I've been struggling with my mental health lately. A shocker, right? Artists struggling with their mental health. I'm like a fucking Van Gogh over here. Oh, have you guys ever heard that Van Gogh didn't shoot himself? So anybody who knows Van Gogh knows that Van Gogh unalived himself. But in an art history class I took when I was in college, so a college level art history class that I took, we discussed the possibility that Van Gogh possibly did not unalive himself. So one of the things that Van Gogh was known for was he was very, he was not a snitch. He did not want to get people in trouble. Van Gogh did not. One of the theories is that Van Gogh was accidentally hurt with a firearm by one of the local boys, one of the local young men in the town that he lived in. And instead of, or potentially his roommate that he had a ton of altercations with and had really bad history with. This roommate was also notorious and a little bit known for being a little bit unstable in certain ways. I did a report on Van Gogh when I was in college for a speech class, funnily enough. And one of the things that I gave the speech about was that, like, you know, there's this idea that as an artist that you need to suffer for your art, but I made the claim that as an artist you don't need to suffer for your art. You need to get better for your art. If you struggle with mental health, that getting help from your mental health will make your art better. So like Van Gogh is one of the examples that I gave. Van Gogh painted Starry Night, arguably his most iconic, most well-known painting that he ever made. I mean, Sunflowers was also really, you know, really popular. And then also his final painting, the field painting, was also really popular as well. But he painted Starry Night from the window of his asylum room. Now, you can argue that Van Gogh was not receiving the best of mental health care at that time. But he was receiving care. He was around other people. They were trying to help him. He was trying to get help. So, you know, and that is when he painted his best work, was when he was receiving help for his mental health. And so that was like kind of the argument that I made, was that like as artists, we don't suffer for our art. And we shouldn't have to suffer for our art. We're creative people, and I think that makes us a little bit more sensitive to things. And there's that stigma that you need to suffer for your art to have it be good art. But I don't think so. I think that when you get help and you're on the right track, you know, you have a support system and you've got people around you that you love and that care for you, you know, and that are looking out for you and everything like that, that's when you're going to make your best art, when your mental health is good, you know. And some people can disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. I completely understand that, because I also have some other, like, I think that because when I was in college, I was super into, and I still am into, Dadaism. And Dadaism was from the First World War, right around the First World War. It was the kind of parent for surrealism. So if you know, like the melty clocks and just kind of really Picasso kind of thing, you know, the surrealism where some people will look at it and be like, that is not art. That is just really weird, or that's really freaky, you know, or that's like whatever. That's just a block, or that's just a canvas with red on it, you know. But Dadaism was, so right around the First World War, people had this big bout of like nihilism, and nihilism is where you believe that nothing matters. And you can kind of go two ways, right? You can go the first way where it's just like, oh my God, nothing matters. And so you're really depressed and you're really down. Or you can go the other way and just be like, nothing matters, my guy, nothing matters. So who cares? Let's fuck it up. Let's go wild, right? And so the Dadaists, they started this like surrealist movement of, we've been following the rules of art for so long that art is this certain thing, that art looks a certain way. So like think about like Victorian art, the romantic art, very like, it looks like people, and they're very soft and they're very beautiful, and the lighting is beautiful, and the landscapes are accurate, and they look like real life, like it could be a photograph kind of feeling. And they're like, we've been following these rules for what is art. Why can't we just kind of, like, it wasn't that like organized, but it was along those lines of like, let's start breaking rules because we're all gonna die kind of feeling was the vibe of this time period. Because there's never been a war like that before, the First World War. And so this movement is, one of the first things, or one of the ones that I remember is, it was a urinal. They had taken a porcelain urinal, turned it upside down, wrote a name on it, and then presented it in an art gallery as, this is art, right? Of course, that made a lot of people really mad. And so when you think of like modern art, and you think about like, why is that in an art gallery? Or how did that get labeled as art? Well, you can thank the Dadaists. That's where they started that. They started that, pushing the label of what is and isn't art. So another thing that they started was kind of like performance art, kind of, I think, got its start in that area. That could be wrong, but like performance art, not like as like theater. I'm talking like they would create these poems, I guess, these like spoken word poems that were completely nonsense. There was this time period and these groups of artists where they had this idea where they basically said that all writing should be nonsense and not even the author should know what it means. So it would literally just be like if you were to type on a keyboard, just go, blah, 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 you know what I mean? It's a story in some language that nobody understands, and that is art. There's this one that's like Cuckoo Kabi or something like that. Let me see if I can find it actually. Hugo Ball was a big guy. Here he is. I love him. He's amazing. Caruana. Joe Latano, Bomblo, Alali, Bombia, Gossiga, Mempha, Habiat, Haram. It doesn't mean anything. And he would dress up like this and then go perform this. And it was art, and it was amazing, and it was art, but it has never been art before. And they just said that it was art, and so it was art, and I love it. I love it. So like when you see these people who is just like, this person duct taped themselves to a billboard for 10 hours as an installation art, people are like, that's not art. It's like, yeah, it is. It absolutely is. As soon as you say that's not art, it becomes art. That's my mentality of art. As soon as you think it's not art, that's when it becomes art. It's the dialogue. It's the discussion of it. But originally I was talking about Van Gogh. Now, Van Gogh had this what was it? A roommate. That's the word I'm looking for. Van Gogh had a roommate back in the day that he lived with, because of course he is notoriously a very poor artist. He never really sold a painting. The only paintings he ever sold were to his brother, which like, what a vibe, right? But he had this other, and he was also an artist, but I don't think his roommate ever got like the notoriety that Van Gogh has. No way. But he and this guy they hated each other. They were notoriously always at each other's throats, always fighting each other and that sort of thing. So some art historians, and I learned this when I was in college, and this may be different now, so don't quote me on this, but some art historians theorize that there is a potential that there was an altercation between Van Gogh and his roommate, and Van Gogh did not want to get his roommate in trouble. And because Van Gogh knew that he had been mortally wounded. And yeah, because I think it was like something like his brother, the one who bought all the paintings, was like, there's no way that he would have done that. And I think there was also that old, it's not old wives' tale, but it's like an urban legend that Van Gogh ate yellow paint to be happy. I don't think he actually ever did that. Van Gogh's story is a sad one, because he's definitely one of those artists that didn't get recognized in his own time. And then his legacy is really like, is really sad, because then you get the people who think that like, oh, well, to paint the next starry night, or to be a great artist, I need to suffer. I need to go through terrible things, or I need to have, my mental health needs to be really, really bad. It needs to be at its worst for me to make a masterpiece. And that's just not the case if you look at other artists as well. Jackson Pollock is another one that I looked at. Jackson Pollock, if you don't know who that is, he is the guy who does splatter paintings. And his have sold for like hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. He is the splatter painting guy, Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock was an alcoholic, and I think, don't quote me, I think he died in a drunk driving accident. Now, the fun thing with Jackson Pollock is that people really, really like him, or they really, really hate him, because he did the splatter paintings. But the thing with his splatter paintings is he didn't just like sit in with like a paintbrush and then just start like whacking the paintbrush, right? He wasn't just whacking the paintbrush. He would have his canvas on the floor and he would stand over it and he had like specially made paintbrushes, I'm pretty sure, and he would mix his paint himself so he knew the exact consistency. And he would meticulously like let it drip. He knew exactly where, well, this is what I've read in my art history class. He knew exactly where every drop of paint was going. So when you see these splatter paintings, they're really quite intentional, which I think is why Jackson Pollock's work is so well known, is because when you do the research into the process of it, then you kind of learn more. And I think that's where a lot of people, like, when you're not like in the art world, that's why I don't like the gatekeeping of the art world, where like if you don't know, then it's really hard to get into, you know, and it's like a secret, and it's like, oh, you don't know why people like Jackson Pollock. What a shame, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to like Jackson Pollock, you don't have to like anybody. But Jackson Pollock was an alcoholic, but his most expensive painting, arguably his best work, quote unquote, best work, you know, if it's the most expensive, it's the best one, right? I don't agree with that statement, but one could argue that. Hello, Apple, my puppy is here. That he painted that while he was in recovery. He painted while he was in recovery. So Van Gogh painted his masterpiece while he was receiving mental health care, and Jackson Pollock painted his masterpiece while he was sober. So now, that's not to say that people cannot make masterpieces while they are suffering. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the stigma of artists needing to suffer to make masterpieces is just incorrect. The Dadaists were so funny. Hang on. So there was this guy. So like this was a big one. Collages became a really big thing during Dada times. Here's the urinal. R. Mutt. And he's just like, he presented it to an art gallery, and he's like, okay. He started opening up their own art galleries. This is a big one with the collage and everything like that. So if you hate collage, you can thank the Dadaists. The collage is what's really showing up. There was a lot of sculptural stuff, but then that led into like the surreal art. So if you go to like surrealism art, that's, I think, what more people know, or are more familiar with, where you've got like the guy with the apple in front of his face. I don't know that one. I don't know what that one's called. I'm sorry. The melty clocks. If you have the time, there was a animated short that was made by Walt Disney and Dali. And it is really weird. It's kind of in the vibe of Fantasia, but it is surreal art. Just check it.